Finally, we're able to come to you live from Djuma Game Reserve after a couple of days of absence, and I really do apologize for that. I'm sorry we were not able to bring you our live safaris every day for the last couple of days. The worst time of the year to have some problems. My name is Mark, by the way, and this is Wild Earth. This is Djuma Game Reserve. We're coming to you live from South Africa, wonderful part of the world. It's part of the Greater Kruger National Park. And just like it happens on a lot of occasions, we find some animals to open up with so that we can give you a wonderful view when the live stream starts. And as we go live, they just all move out of shot. It's almost as though they have this built-in knowledge of, oh, sorry, we're live, we better get out of the picture type of thing. VM is on camera with me today. Alec is in final control. Scott is also there. The four of us have been fighting hard to come back to you. We've won one battle, and we've still got another battle to go, which is our other vehicles, so that we can get two vehicles out. And unfortunately, it'll be a little bit longer than we expected to get the other vehicle up and going. Technical issues and just the time of the year that prevents us from being able to get the right type of spares. A very serious issue that cropped up with that vehicle that is just proving to be a little bit more difficult. So that vehicle is known as Jigger, and Jigger has gone to hospital. The auto doctor came to pick it up today, and actually the company is called Auto Doctor. They came to pick it up today, and they're going to be working on it. And well, I can discuss later, maybe, if there's anyone that's interested in the technical side of things, what the problem may be. But it's semantics, really. The fact is that Jigger's not going anywhere for a while because it has to be stripped, and we have to find out not only why a particular electronic item burnt out, but what, or rather not only replacing it, but why it burnt out. So we have got a wonderful afternoon ahead of us. It's the hottest and most humid part of our summer right now, which is fantastic. One of the reasons why I want to get up to one of the dams, because I have this funny feeling that we might have some elephants coming down to have a bit of a swim and a bit of a party down at the dam. So although we're in a sort of the northeastern part, I want to get to the south, or rather northwestern part, I want to get to the southeastern part. So we've got a bit of traveling to do, and I want to do that with the sun behind us, because at the moment, facing into the sun, as you can see, it's blinding, it's hot. Humidity levels probably way above 85% at the moment, maybe 80%. Temperature's probably in the high 30s, which is maybe the high 90s for you if you're in Fahrenheit. And so the best thing we can do is actually just turn around and aim for the other way, and it'll suit us better with the light as well if we're going to see anything. No real plan. We haven't been out for a few days, so it has some impact on losing track of where things have been over the last few days. We've actually, all four of us, have been up to our armpits in, I wouldn't say grease, because it hasn't been a greasy job. It's just been an awkward job, fixing things, undoing nuts and bolts, and taking pieces out and sorting out this vehicle. But I'm really, really happy that we're on our way, and I'm hoping that she's going to hold from now until we finish, because it seems to have been that we found a major problem that we've managed to sort out. There's a caravan flying over. Okay, so join me for a safari. Let's go and see what we can find for you this afternoon. We're going to go down into this open area here that we're just off Zoe's Road, like Parlour Plains open area, and turn around there. There's not much point turning around here when there's an open area just ahead of us. There might be something out there. The caravan, by the way, is a Cessna. It's about a 20-seater, I think, or 16-seater. Flies guests into the lodges, usually lands at Arathusa airstrip. Now, Arathusa is another lodge that we traverse for our live safaris. But I'm not going to get there this afternoon, because I want to go to a very specific dam, because I know that it's deep, and I know that elephants love swimming in it, and it's one of those hot days that elephants love swimming in, and I have no idea whether they're there or not, but I certainly want to try and get there. I didn't really expect anything here on the open area this time of day. Pretty hot, but maybe I thought there might be something in the shade on the edges. But it's nice to just have a little bit of a look. Very hazy over the mountains in the west. In fact, that plane is now landing at Arathusa airstrip as we speak. I've just seen it bank and go down below the tree line. Probably dropping off or picking up guests. We've had some more rain, we've had some more cloud. We drove through from Manuleti this morning in some rain, and much as I did yesterday, the sun burned things open by mid-morning. It was starting to burn open. It's a wonderful afternoon that nature has given us. Blue skies, patches of very, very high cloud way up there in the stratosphere, and one needs to do. The kudu that we saw at the beginning, by the way, there's a kudu bull when we were opening up, was actually part of a bat. The kudu that we saw at the beginning, by the way, there's a kudu bull when we were opening up, was actually part of a bachelor herd that we've been seeing quite a lot of lately. They seem to be utilizing the whole Djuma area. We've seen them in various different places around Djuma. There are 5 of them, big kudu bulls, and they've made a straight line through the bush. We might pick them up on Zoe's road, but I don't think I'm going to go that way. What I'm going to do is I haven't really decided which way I'm going to go. I want to go to Buffelshoek Dam. For those of you who've been with us for a long time, you know the names. There's a lot of the places that we visit and the roads that we traverse. And well, on the way there I'd like to stop at a couple of mud pans and a couple of places to be able to have a look to see what might be wallowing in the mud. I know there most likely going to be some buffalo bulls. It's the kind of day that buffalo bulls are going to make a beeline for these kind of places. In fact, kind of day that all sorts of animals might be wallowing or sitting in the mud. Oh, look at that bird in the road. That's the African hoopoe. Lovely long beak for probing in the ground. Kind of a miniature version of the hardy-dar in terms of the way it feeds, probing into the ground, probing in, well, unlike the hardy-dar, probes in holes in trees and in behind bark, but they do also probe holes in the ground. Got a beautiful crest when they raise their crest. The moment it's folded flat behind their head, so it gives it that sort of hammer look. If you're wondering what that high-pitched noise is in the background, those are cicadas on hot, humid days like this, and they can become overwhelming. They can become so vocal, or rather, it's not vocal, they just can become quite noisy. But those are the cicadas that are a type of bug that suck the sap of trees. I know in North America you have a 17-year cycle with cicadas. They take 17 years to go through their life cycles. For this part of the world, we have them every year. They don't have those kind of life cycles. They are constantly emerging every year. Okay, can we pick up the wooden hoopoe now and carry on? I'm gonna roll towards it just to prove that it is actually a live hoopoe. There we go. Bye bye, hoopoe. Sorry to disturb you, child, but at that rate we would have been here all day waiting for a hoopoe to do something. And I'm sure a hoopoe's got better things to do than stand and look at us all afternoon. Questions at WildEarthTV. If you want to send us any questions, there's also the Twitter feed that you can follow. Hashtag Safari Live is what it is. but it's not live safari. Although we're a live safari, it's not safari. It's not live safari. It's safari live. Somebody was driving with a flat wheel. I'm going to need to speak on the radio, and I hope it doesn't cut out the stream. If it does, we'll be back in 2 minutes. On our own, not much was found on. I don't think anybody was really driving around here this morning. In terms of Ongari or Vuyatela or Djuma, there are three names that we can use for the same property. The property is called Gari or Western Gari, and on Western Gari we have a lodge. There are two lodges, one is called Galago and one is called Vuyatela, and both of them belong to the holding group called Djuma Game Reserve, because the whole of the area is Djuma Game Reserve. So it's probably simpler and less confusing if we just refer to it as Djuma, because that's what it is. So here on Djuma there doesn't seem to have been a lot of vehicles driving around. Not many things were found this morning. So we have an open slate ahead of us. We have to now start re-establishing contact with a lot of the animals that we see on a regular basis to be able to keep up with them. It's very difficult when we've been driving for a while. We've had some animals on camera, and if we continue, if we add it twice a day, we can somehow keep track of them and maybe pick them up again day after day. But when we haven't been around for sometimes even just one drive, and here we haven't been out for a couple of drives, we lose track of where the animals are, and nothing stays the same here in Africa. Everything moves around. Everything has to pretty much be in a different place every day to a large extent. So I'm going to try and cover as much ground as I can. We're going to try and see what has been moving around. Scott will be out tomorrow, and I'm hoping that I can give him a few leads to follow up on for tomorrow's drive, and hopefully we can find something today for him to follow up on. And by the looks of things, and by crossing fingers and holding thumbs and knocking on wood and everything else, we've got little Wendy sorted out, this vehicle known as a Nele or Wendy. It has been a challenge, to say the least, but not a challenge that scared us away. Any challenge is great, and I have to thank all of us, all of the team, because every single one of us pulled together and we all managed to do our part to get this thing going. Even rushing to town twice yesterday. Now going to town for us is quite a mission. It's 50 or 60 miles, most of it on dirt roads. And the guys had to do that twice yesterday. I managed to spend an evening in Manyeleti yesterday evening, and at sunset at the very big dam in Manyeleti, sitting watching the sunset, had a huge herd of elephants come past me, and I think that was my elephant fix. I so needed it. Earlier on I'd seen a big bull, but he wasn't very accommodating. He sort of gave me a cursory glance and then proceeded to move off into the bush, so it wasn't quite the elephant fix that I wanted. But later on, towards just after sunset, in fact it was starting to get dark, I was suddenly surrounded by multiple family groups, and a wonderful big elephant cow that I have seen up in the Timbavati, and she actually, I must maybe post that little bit of a video. She crossed the road in front of me, and then she joined up with another herd, and then somehow there was a little bit of a conflict in the herd, so she crossed back over, came right in front of me with all the children, and crossed back over to the other side. And what was really incredible, which is a wonderful thing to see sometimes, there was a youngster from one of the other herds that obviously knew this old matriarch, a teenager, a young cow, that came running up, crossing the road in front of me, throwing her head in my direction to give me an acknowledgement, and met up with this old female, this old cow that with a very long tusk, one very long tusk, very long and narrow. And as she was approaching the old matriarch, some of the teenagers that belonged to the old matriarch were trying to sort of form a barrier. Sorry, I'm just looking at tracks here, that there's something big running. But this youngster just ignored them and went straight up to the matriarch, and the greeting and the tenderness that they exhibited was fantastic. Something that I wish we could get on camera. Okay, I'm going to go this way. I wanted to go down to the dam. Looks like it might have been a hyena, but I'm not sure, because the paws have hit the sand so hard that it has splashed the sand, and all I can see is all I can make out is that it is a predator that has been running here. And here's not such soft sand, so that if it came this way, it might have gone down to the dam. If it did come this way, I should see something more distinct. Otherwise it went down towards Treehouse Dam, which I think it did. No, this. Okay, let's go down to the dam, to the water. Hot day, we need to be at the water. Good afternoon, Gail. Gail sent in a question. Gail's from Warwick. Warwick is, I'm guessing, the UK. Alex might help me with that. Oh, in the US. Okay. I hear the name Warwick, all I can think of is Warwickshire. Warwickshire. I don't know, maybe there isn't even such a place. Gail is asking, are there any animals that are not water dependent, that don't need to go to water, that can get all their requirements, their moisture requirements from what they eat? Now it came down this way. Looks like that was running hard. Let's go and see closer to the water. Gail, in areas like this, which have a fairly high rainfall, where there's almost guaranteed to be water, there are a lot of animals that or most of the animals here, have not adapted to dry conditions where they don't need water. And it's only really extremely dry conditions, arid conditions, where animals have adapted so well that they... I'll get so distracted. There's cat tracks here. Arid conditions that have like oryx and springbuck and some of the gazelles and a whole bunch of animals that actually can survive very well without water. The gerenuk, one of them. In fact, there's some interesting things about how their bodies deal with the lack of liquid and being able to sustain them on the kind of diet that they live on to get all their moisture requirement from sort of desert plants and things. But I don't think there are not that many here that live in such a high rainfall area compared to desert conditions that have developed that sort of need. I think you could extend the steenbok more than the duiker. If anything, I've seen duiker coming down to drink at waterholes a lot, but it's very, very seldom that you'll actually have a steenbok coming to drink. There are a lot of birds. I mean, how extensive you want me to answer this question, if it's just mammals alone, or if we're talking about birds and things as well. There are a lot of birds that are not water dependent, mostly because, you see there's a leopard that's going up the other way. Is it a leopard? 2 days old. No, that's lion. Small lion. But yeah, at least from yesterday. Well, naturally there's buffalo in the water. There was a warthog, but he's running away. I don't want to disturb them too much. Even more buffalo coming in. Boy, this is public bars, buffalo public bars today. Yes, the warthog hasn't moved too far. Warthogs seem to be a little bit shy in this day and age. I'm not sure why. I wonder how he copes with all these big bulls around. At least 21 of them, these buffalo bulls. One of the reasons why a lot of people call them water buffalo, because of what they're doing right now. These are not water buffalo, these are African buffalo. The Asian buffalo is known as the water buffalo. Some of them wading right into the water and getting as deep in as possible. there's that youngster. There's a youngster there too. Not the very young one that we saw the other day, but there is a young bull here that is probably a little bit too young. Yeah, that one there is facing us. He's a little bit too young to actually be part of the old Duggar Boy crowd, but there's no rules about these things. It's almost like the old men's club. Even those two boys that are nose to nose, those two. Hello, brother. Now I want to leave them because I want to start visiting other dams, and I'm sure we're probably going to have some buffalo at other dams too. This bull rubbing here, found a nice little sharp stick to get to some of the itches around his boss, around his horns. Areas where ticks tend to accumulate. Ticks, maybe other parasites. There's actually a lot happening here. In the two boys we were looking at earlier, sort of the interaction between them is quite interesting. There's some that are just standing and not doing much. Okay, let's see what else we have to find for you, or what else Djuma has to offer. Bye, boys. I wouldn't mind being in some water myself. So to conclude with the water-dependent animals, or animals that are not that dependent on water, I think if you look at the habitat and you look at the rainfall of a region, I think the animals that you will find within that sort of rainfall region will have adapted accordingly. So in an area like this, the animals that occupy an area like this are generally the kind of animals that are accustomed to having water available to them because of the amount of rainfall, because of the vegetation. But generally speaking, most of these animals are relatively water dependent and they need to get to water. It kind of doesn't really make sense sometimes, because one within this amount of greenery. Just the dry areas, the drier regions where animals have a much less of a choice of vegetation, and of course the vegetation itself not really that lush. And those animals that have adapted to a waterless environment. Oh, look, there's a little nyala bull. Hey, little boy. New branch been broken on that marula tree. 2 nyala bulls, both youngsters. Hi Sharon in Austria. Nice to hear from you, Sharon. Sharon is a wonderful friend who sends me so much information at times, and I don't get a chance to acknowledge it as often as I should. But Sharon, just asking the question, do they hold the oxpeckers that we see on the buffalo and on most of the herbivores, do they hold their beaks open for ventilation? Or it's mostly for cooling. In fact, there are a lot of birds that if I see any more on a day like today where it's really hot, there are a lot of birds that we will find that are panting with their beaks open. Helps maintain body temperature, or helps regulate body temperature at least. So yes, ventilation, cooling down. Oh, there's a little porcupine quill. Actually marks on the ground from the porcupine walking here. So. The tip of it is broken off, so it's not as sharp as it would or could be. But this is one of the quills that causes damage when it does have its point, which would be somewhere up in the region of about where the end of my finger is. You can see that it is broken off. Oh, wait a minute, I see another one. Hold on a sec, I'm just unplugging. This is another one, can become one of the new quills, the lucky quills. This is a quill that is dangerous in that it has a very fat and round shaft. It is not very flexible. This is the type of quill that when a porcupine is attacked or it needs to defend itself, it will back into its aggressor, and this is the kind of quill that will stick in and stay there. Quills are not shot out, they're not ejected, porcupine won't shoot its quills, but what they do is that they raise their hackles like a dog would, and what that does, because these essentially are hairs, is that it'll raise all the quills, and they do tend to go face first into a very deep bush, and they will rush back at an aggressor, at a predator, and hopefully spear them with a couple of these. This quill, on the other hand, is one of the longer quills, kind of an intermediary between this very sharp defensive quill and the long, very hair-like quills that they have. This is still very sharp, and it can still inflict an injury, but it won't be able to penetrate as deep as one of these big round quills. This is one of the sort of the longer, very flexible quills that the porcupine has. So although it's exceptionally sharp, and possibly even sharper than that one, it's generally not the type of quill that actually penetrates a predator. And you see how sharp that is. Let me put it against the steering, the black background of the steering column or the steering wheel. Yeah, it's exceptionally sharp. And unlike its American counterparts, the African porcupine doesn't really have a little barb at the end, and it's mostly the smaller quills, the very small quills, I think, if I'm not mistaken, of the American porcupine that has little barbs that make it even more difficult to extract. But this is sharp enough, but a very pretty quill, isn't it? So porcupine was walking here last night. Something made it drop 2 quills. One can expect to find quills from time to time, much as we lose our hair and birds lose their feathers. Porcupines drop their quills, and there's another one in the road. So something's telling me that this porcupine was somewhat stressed. There's another one up ahead. I need to investigate this a little bit further. I can tell you some stories about finding similar things, but I'll be back shortly. If this carries on, I'll be able to put a whole porcupine together. But this is a story telling a tale. Actually, this particular quill that's broken is one of the very, very long quills that almost ends in a very thin hair-like structure or text. Well, it becomes very, very thin and whip-like. But it's clearly been broken for a long time. So I would imagine that a quill like this would be shed purely because it is broken. These quills, on the other hand, these are all defensive quills mostly, and my guess is, and we need to go because I can hear Franklin complaining, this wouldn't have happened now, and there's been vehicles driving up and down here, so I can't really see anything other than some rough porcupine tracks that have been driven over. It would have been nice to see if there were any cat tracks here, because what this is telling me is that this porcupine was stressed out, and it was actually defending itself because either a leopard or a lion was playing with it or attempting to. And you find that with lion cubs and leopard cubs, and unless you're a leopard, unless you find a leopard that has over time learnt how to kill a porcupine, they have to go through a very painful process of learning how to actually get the porcupine, and invariably that means that they get a few quills in their body. These I don't think were actually embedded in anything. I'm not seeing anything that looks like blood or these are merely quills that have been ejected, or rather these are quills that have fallen out as a result of something stressing the porcupine out, or maybe tapping it as a cat would. I'm going to talk further on this as we drive, because it's actually a very interesting subject, and I have on many occasions followed a trail of quills and found a kill site where a leopard has actually ended up killing the porcupine after a couple of 100 meters of constantly egging it on and constantly tiring it out. And I've also known leopards in the past who have become porcupine specialists and have learned how to actually kill a porcupine by getting to the front of it, which is not easy because a porcupine invariably will show its back to its predator, because that's the defensive side, and it's very difficult for a predator to get at it. But I've known leopards to be able to get in front of a porcupine and to give it such a swipe on the nose that it almost knocks it out. Not here on the vehicle, it's further on down the line between here and I guess Europe, or undersea cables, or I don't know, something else. Welcome back. Important to keep hydrated in a place like this with the heat that we have. You don't realize how much water you're losing until you start getting a headache. I think one of the first signs of dehydration is a headache, and when that starts happening, it's more than just water you need. It's normally an electrolyte mixture that you need, because you don't really know how much your body is actually losing when you come from a different climate to the heat of Africa, and especially sometimes in the drier months where it might be winter but it's still a hot, dry heat that you might experience during the day, and you don't notice how much perspiration is sapping your body of its liquids and vital salts and vital electrolytes, basically. You don't always need a special rehydrant or rehydrate mixture that you can buy in a sachet. You can make one up yourself with a little bit of salt, a little bit of sugar or honey dissolved in water. Now, many years ago, changing the subject, many years ago in the wet season, there was a particular flower that is one of my favorite flowers that grew along this drainage line that I hadn't found anywhere else on Djuma. And might be growing now, but because it's a flower that dies back every year and the tuber stays underground, I'm going to keep my eyes open for it. It's a creep, quite a unique creeper, in that the leaves actually become the tendrils for the creeper. It's not a separate leaf and tendril. The leaves actually become the tendrils. The tips of the leaves are the tendrils. And one of our zoomies, who's not very well at the moment, was named after the same thing this flower was named after. And I can't find one. I'll have to travel here quite often. There's quite possibly more of them around, and it's quite possible that it's growing. I'd have to take a walk where I last saw the last one, which is further back, to find the plant. It's not easy to find the plant because it grows deep within other plants as a creeper, and it might only be January, February when the flowers start coming out. There's a flower known as the flame lily. It's actually the national flower of Zimbabwe. Come in a red and a yellow variety, and it'll be, in terms of flowers, I would say that would be my, this time round with Wild Earth and with our broadcast, I reckon that would be my quest, would be to find the flame lily. Also the other variety that's got red on the tips of its petals. Deep in the bush, sort of so important to me. Why? I don't know. back up in here. No, this is Nyala Road. Let me track back. Flowers. Trying to get to see these flowers. This is my flower of the day. We saw two little flowers the other day. I want to make sure we're not in the we're putting it in the shade, but there we go. We saw two little flowers on a very small plant the other day, but this is now one really big plant. They don't grow very big, but this is obviously an old plant that has been stunted with continual browsing by other animals. This is the wild honeysuckle. It is a really beautiful plant. I have a couple growing at home that I've been nursing for years and years and years. They've barely grown at all in all the years that I've known them to be there. Wild honeysuckle. White Christmas. That's the closest we get to a white Christmas. The jasmine flowers, the star jasmine creeper that we have, the wild honeysuckle. There's a cycnium that's flowering at the moment. There are a few white flowers, white blossoms. I had this morning in my hand, I had the most magnificent blossom of all. Was the blossom of a baobab, which we have in the camp at Manyeleti. It's blooming at the camp in Manyeleti, and I'm meant to bring it with me. I guess it'll have to be day after tomorrow. I'll bring you a baobab blossom, but it'll be on the morning drive because it won't last throughout the day for the afternoon drive. But that's what I wanted. That if I can find one, will be my Christmas present. And since I don't really have Christmas, Scott will be on tomorrow and I'll be on Christmas Day. I'll be on Christmas Day. We're going to have to alternate because, well, Djuma went to hospital today. As I mentioned earlier, Djuma has something that is beyond our ability to fix out here in the bush. It needs more professional attention. It has gone to the auto doctor in Woodsbridge, and I hope that they can do something with it. Being an electronic engine and being a vehicle that has a computer setup, an element burnt out, which I guess sends a message to the computer that there isn't something there, so it can't start up, so it's not starting. And while we were able, because it was more of a mechanical issue that happened with Wendy, with this vehicle, Veerman, myself and Scott and Alex and Jason, between the five of us, we managed to to deal with it. But when it comes to electrical, or rather more electronic rather than electrical, it's computerized and electronic. Oh well, so much for having to come to Buffelshoek Dam because there were elephants. They're just not here yet. But there's a stalk. That's nice. There's a stalk. Let's go this way, then I can face the dam properly. They're still coming, I guess, the Ellies. Doesn't look like there's been much. What's interesting is that you can't see any sign of hippo unless they're all sleeping, and we've got to wait until maybe a nose appears. But a very interesting stalk, if anybody wants to identify it for me. A stork and an Egyptian goose. One Egyptian goose as opposed to two, and that tells me something. Unless I can find the other one, but I can't do that because she's probably on a nest. Oh no, I'm sorry, I do see the other one. The other one is grazing way beyond the back of the dam, out on the grasses. I can see it. So maybe not on a nest. So Sharon, as you can see, the stalk is also ventilating, mouth open, or rather beak open. Doing the one-legged statue thing, resting one leg. It is a hot day. And birds need to help cool themselves whichever way they can. However they can. Right, I think we need to keep moving. To do a bit of a double loop sort of thing around this area, just in case there are some elephants about. Jeffrey in Austin, Texas. Hello, Jeffrey. What did Jeffrey say? Reminds me of John Cleese's funny walks on Monty Python. David, in the UK, are there easy ways to tell the difference between storks and herons? Herons generally don't have the very dense bill, or beak, bill I guess would be a better term, that the storks have, David, and the herons have a much smaller head. They do have a very sharp and very long pointed beak, beak. But herons are much longer legged, much thinner in body, thin necks, generally grey birds. Most of the herons that we have here are, except for the egrets of course, and then the night herons, the very small night herons, which you can never confuse. There are only really, I'd say, maybe 4 species of heron that you could confuse. But it's the way that they carry themselves, it's the way that they sit, it's the way they pull their neck in, the herons, as opposed to the storks. I guess it's just a case of getting to know the birds and to instantly be able to recognize whether it is one or the other. But we have a grey heron, a black-headed heron, the purple heron, and the Goliath heron are our 4 large herons that might be mistaken for storks. The other bird that is often confused with the herons and the storks are the cranes, and well, they are very distinct in their own right, but it's not a bad thing to confuse them with the other two. It's just that we are not likely to get any of the cranes here. The cranes do not occur in this area. But the storks, generally a much heavier face. If you can see with the stork, the way the bill meets the face, where the cere is, where the base of the beak is, it's very, very dense, as opposed to the heron, which is very, very narrow. And we don't have any herons that are white like the stork is. Herons generally don't have colorful beaks or very thick beaks. I mean, I'm thinking of the black stork known as the open-billed stork, which has a very distinct beak, bill, mouth part. There are actually very few of each that one can get confused, but mostly because of the colouring and the density of the bill. Our storks are generally sort of a greyish colour. I mean, sorry, our herons. I'm getting confused now. Our herons are generally a greyish colour with reddish markings and things. The Goliath heron is very distinctive, but the grey heron, the black-headed heron, a general overall grey colour as opposed to the storks. None of the storks are a grey colour. What that starling is eating. Oh, it's collecting material actually. There was a starling and eating something, but it wasn't. It's collecting dry fibres out of maybe an elephant dung that had been washed clean, and it's probably going to use it as a matting for its nesting material. Starlings are incredibly ingenious. They'll use aromatic plants and things to line their nests to help with parasite suppression, mites, and the like of mites and things that are likely to affect the chicks. Wondering if David in the UK is my old hometown Dave, from old friend from my hometown from way back when we were still at school. We didn't really know each other when we were at school, but it came out after meeting up through Wild Earth that Dave lived very close to where I went to high school and close to where my grandmother lived. getting into the, I suppose, the northeastern corner of Djuma. This is one of the boundary roads that we have right now, or rather that we're on. To the left of us is a very large area known as Buffelshoek, and often elephants that come through from Buffelshoek that come this way. And I'm hoping just by doing a few turns around this dam that maybe, if we're lucky, there might be something coming closer towards Buffelshoek Dam. But it is still a rather hot afternoon. Things do tend to only start moving in maybe an hour or so. Reconnecting after a couple of days of being under a vehicle and playing mechanic, and scratching knuckles, and what else? Fixing things. It's actually very rewarding, being able to go through what we went through in the last couple of days with Wendy, with this vehicle, and a huge learning curve for all of us, because there are aspects of what we've done that neither of us have actually done before, but we've managed to, with pooling our resources and with the teamwork that we've had, is actually getting it right.
Yeah, we're all Land Rover mechanics now.
Getting there. Yeah. I suppose we could be excused for the jigger issue, because that's a BMW engine. If it was Land Rover, we probably would have had it fixed. Yeah. But the main thing is we're here. We're live. We're in Africa on a summer's day. Monica. Monica. Oh. God. If only we can get it on camera, that could, because it might run. Oh, in a hole. We're going into that quarry. Got a white-throated monitor lizard here. Oh, there he is, coming into the base of that quarry. See, what we don't want to do is try and get too close, because then it's just going to run and climb a tree and disappear. But what we actually have is a monitor on the hunt, and it has a forked tongue that it darts in and out very much like a snake. And what it is, it's sort of like a stereo sniffing system. It can pick up the scent trail of whatever it is that it's hunting or whatever it is that it's looking for. And this time of the year, after the rains that we've had, the giant African land snails have been mating, they've been laying eggs. There's no doubt a lot of eggs that might be hatching, and one of the white-throated monitor's favorite meals at this time of the year is digging up all these hatchling little giant African land snails. I mean, the young, not hatchlings, but young African land snails, anything up to sort of garden snail size, are a relished meal for the monitor lizard. Looks like it might be. It's hard to make out in the vegetation. There's not much we can do about that right now. We've got to maybe just wait a little bit and maybe it'll come out. But it is sniffing around. It looks like it was digging there a little bit. I'm going to reverse and go to it that we can see it coming out from the other side of this quarry. And I've often found that when they're so busy and so intent on digging up snails and digging up things, oh, there he goes. It's chasing a grasshopper or something. Not running because of us, it was chasing something. Just poking its head up through the grasses to keep track of us. So it must have Must have frightened something and ended up chasing it. They have a very powerful tail that they use almost as a whip to defend themselves. But this, being a tree climbing monitor lizard, has got claws on it like an eagle. And I hope we can maybe get a better view other than just a little bit of movement in the grass. There we go, poking its head out. Come out wherever you are. Cousin of the Komodo dragon. You can see that same gait as the Komodo dragons. It is a dragon. It's one of our African dragons. It can grow up to 3 feet long, maybe just over 3 feet. A rather blunt face with almost like a, I don't know how to explain it, but that sort of the forehead just before, in front of the eyes, that nose is sort of like a Roman nose, very distinctly different to its cousin, the water monitor, the other type of monitor lizard that we get in Africa, which has got a very sharp and very flattened sort of face, living in the water, a lot more streamlined for swimming. But this is a climbing monster. This is a climbing, digging, fighting monster that eats baby crocodiles for breakfast. They are known to dig up crocodile nests, crocodile eggs. They're known to eat hatchling crocodiles, as do the water monitors, the Nile monitor. They're known to raid birds' nests. They're known to eat snakes and frogs, and there we go. That's actually quite nice in the shade there. That worry is starting to look at us now, starting to take notice of us. I hope you can more or less make it out. I know that our high definition camera is a lot better than it was in the old days. Now, I'm not in the habit of rushing out and chasing after it and grabbing it, because the stress that it puts the animal through is really immense, and it alters its behavior entirely, and it just perpetuates its fear of humans. And being able to actually sit and film it and watch it without it running away, and with it being as relaxed as it seems to be, is a very special moment, even if it isn't that clear a shot, because we have a lot of grasses. It is summer. Something troubling its face. Got an itch, maybe. Yeah, rubbing. This individual is probably about 2 feet long, maybe. Weighs a couple of kilograms. I think I need to move. We're not really seeing much of it right now. If we can move and maybe get a better view of it. There we go. But it's sniffing around, it's smelling something. And there's something that is keeping its attention underneath this bush. Or rather holding its attention. Let me go forward a bit. Thought I could roll, but gravity drive not working. Hello, Susan. Would a cat consider a monitor lizard prey item? That's from Susan on our email. Some would, but they are very, very tough. I think if I remember way back when, I think it was Tara that, oh, I can't remember. No, I remember being with, I think it might have been Tara on camera. I'm sure I was there if I was watching from FC. Anyways, regardless, there was a time way back just off the western edge of quarantine we had it was Mishu, I think, our tortoise catcher leopard, son of Karula, who was trying to kill and eat a monitor lizard when he was still young, and eventually he had to let it go. Eventually, after maybe quite some time, and he'd chewed a bit of the tail, and the monitor lizard was a little bit worse off than when it began, but it was still fine. They're not easy to get into. Pythons might get monitor lizards, and there are a couple of eagles, in particular the martial eagle is a specialist with monitor lizards. Martial eagles have a strong like for monitor lizards. He's given up on whatever that was. I need to move just because he's going to maybe come out across the road behind us. Oh, no, finally it's sorry. Digging in there for something again. It's eating. Oh, it's got an egg. It's got an egg. It's fine. It could be a francolin. That is quite a large egg. That could be a francolin egg, and it's swallowed it whole. I can't see how a francolin could get in there. Probably what it's been sniffing around for is probably, and no doubt might be another one. Yeah, it's pulling something else out of that clump of grass. And another egg. Swallowed in one gulp. And there might even be another one. That's quite sad. I'd love to know what those eggs are. It's very, very thick for it to be francolin. But those eggs are probably a little bit, just a little bit smaller than a chicken egg. Gone back into that hole that it's found and seems to be pulling out something else now. Another one. And unfortunately it's not breaking them open and eating the inside, it's just swallowing these eggs whole. And of course we're not seeing it. I mean, you can see a little bit of movement. I wish we could do something different, but anyway, getting any closer to it is going to change the whole scenario. The only reptile that would have eggs like that would be maybe python. Tortoise, but that wouldn't be tortoise. Tortoise is more sort of ground, underground. Okay, to complete its breakfast, it's going to go and find and catch a warthog now. A bit of bacon with the eggs. Okay, I think we leave it be. It's getting rather thick in there, and it's going to be more and more impossible to see it. Well, I hope you've enjoyed that. It wasn't really easy to see, but you can't always film things out in the open. You can't always dictate how well we're going to get to see things. But that was something interesting. Wow. No idea what those eggs were. They were white. They were sort of Franklin-sized eggs, the kind of eggs that I would expect that maybe would be a Franklin, maybe something small like a Coqui Franklin. It is possible that a Coqui Franklin might have been able to get in there where the monitor was getting in. Very dense grasses, very well hidden. Nature is, and that is what we are here for. We are here driving this specialized vehicle around with a camera, trying to find those special little surprises just for you. And anything from a nest raiding monitor lizard to hopefully something a little bit bigger, something with tooth and claw, something with trunk and tusk, something with horns, something with long necks, something with stripes, something with spots, and occasionally a pretty little flower. The squirrels. Thanks, Alex. The name of this monitor was Varanus albigularis. Albi meaning white, or coming from, or the root of the word albi, albino, alba, which is white, and gularis meaning throat. Gula refers to the throat region. We have gula pouches and birds, like in the marabou stork, a very distended gula pouch, as to the ground hornbills. So albigularis, referring to the white throat, hence the name, the white-throated monitor, which is also known as, not to be confused, but also known as, aka, a rock monitor, or even a tree monitor. There is a third monitor lizard that lives up in East Africa known as the savannah monitor, as far as I know. So I've just done a very big loop coming back around to Buffelshoek Dam, just in case there might have been something here, but there ain't, is not. I would say there ain't, but ain't is not a proper word. But there isn't anything back here yet. We can try again in a little while. There's still a couple of loops that we can do, and one of them is to go back up this way. interesting, all those hippos have spread out and gone elsewhere. Well, what it is hippos head out of the water every night rather. They head out and go off grazing. They only eat grass, hippos. And although there's good grazing right now, they will often graze their way to another dam or another water point overnight, and then spend the day in another water point. There might be a bunch more hippos at Arathusa Dam today, or at Gowrie Dam, Djuma Dam. On the camera there might be a bunch more hippos there, but they never really stick to the same pool as much as they would if they were living in a permanent water like a river or a big lake, natural lake, where you might find the same pods of hippos day in and day out, because the population would be a lot bigger, so there'd be a lot more pressure on them to maintain territories and maintain their sleeping sites within the water. And then often what you'll have is sometimes towards the dry season, when some of the natural ponds and lakes start drying up, the hippo concentrations become greater and greater, and suddenly you find 200 hippos sharing a little patch of water that is barely bigger than the 200 hippos themselves. And then there is a lot of tolerance, but there's also a lot of aggression, because they're quite particular about their personal space. I can relate to that, being alone most of my life, being a bachelor boy. Often very difficult to find cats in an afternoon unless they've been seen in the morning, because they would be, especially on a hot day like this, they would be in deep shade, and unless they were really close to the road and we just happened to come across them, which would be very lucky, it or them, a leopard or a pride lion, or even a cheetah. Cheetah might be moving though. Cheetah we might find on the move in an afternoon like this. Although it is hot, they would like to find an open patch of ground where they would like to hunt. And invariably what happens is that the plains game, the grazers and some of the plains game that are likely to be out on those open areas in the evening that are the prey for cheetah are still in relatively dense bush, and it would be advantageous for a cheetah to be moving through this dense vegetation right now, finding an open area where it can find a spot to wait it out until some of the prey species start coming back in the evenings. But not likely to have much cat movement during a day like today, up until the sun started, unless it was up until the time when the sun started burning open the cloud cover that we had this morning. We drove into Djuma today from Manileti. We drove through rain. It was raining, it was drizzling when we woke up. So potentially the day didn't look too good to start with, but it was one of those wonderful days when, quite typical of summer, you have precipitation in the evening and then it starts lifting as the sun starts rising, and then by mid-morning the sun is actually burning it open and burning away the cloud. But since mid-morning there's not likely to be much cat action or cat movement, and that makes it difficult to find them for an afternoon. And that's why both Scott and myself love to be able to be out early morning so that we can follow up and find something. And the wonderful thing is that because of the behavior, of the general behavior of cats, not that you can predict it, not that you can sort of set your time to it, but generally speaking, when it gets hot, cats tend to bed down for the day. They find themselves a spot of shade, and they might move around as the shade moves, because in the morning they'll be on the western side of a bush, and in the afternoon they'll be on the eastern side because of shade. But they're generally not going to move too far, because it's just so energy consumptive to move around in the heat. But having not been out and having to start off blind, I've seen some cat tracks. I haven't really gotten too excited about them because with tracks from yesterday, notes could be far away by now. And now the cat traffic not going to even know that it's there. Drive past it. Amazing how many times I think of how often we drive past cats that we didn't even know were there. We find the tracks the next morning. There, little dove. Quite strange that there aren't any elephant tracks at the moment that I'm seeing. Anything fresh. Maybe if we go further to the west, we might be lucky. But it doesn't look like there are any elephants around this part of Djuma at the moment. Now we're into the sun, but at least it's It's much lower down now and it's not as harsh as it was. Temperature's starting to drop nicely. The two out there that dip on Central Road one day when there was a lot of mud and puddles. It's very different now, and we had a family of elephant here. We're sitting almost here, maybe a little bit further back, but it's changed because the 2012 flood brought a lot of sand down and has silted up the little mud wallows that used to be here. There was a family of elephant having a wonderful time in this, and one of them was spraying us with mud and sand, splashed all over the camera, all over the vehicle. Pretorius and camera with me that day, and we were giggling like little school kids because it was so funny. So I'll always remember that every time I come through that little dip. It's the way it is here. When you spend time in an area and you see certain things, I mean, there are moments when things come back with clarity. If I had to be asked about those moments before, I might forget, but there's some times when things come back with clarity. I can remember when the sticks killed a warthog right here, and we had one of the cubs trying to carry the warthog skull up this road, and it kept pulling it because it's too heavy and it couldn't get a grip on it, and eventually one of the females of the sticks, lion pride, came back and actually picked it up and carried it. But a lot of the predators, the social predators at least, not so much with leopard, although one does find it with siblings when you have leopard cubs and the siblings find a trophy, and I wouldn't say they'll fight over it, but they do use the trophy, the piece of a kill, as the trophy, as a toy, as a means to have a sort of a one-upmanship game. I've known, I mean, with wild dog, it's very typical of wild dog pups when they kill something to take the skull as the trophy, and it's the pup who has the trophy, and it has the skull, the head, that is sort of the king for that moment until it gets taken away. With lion and lion cubs, sometimes it's a zebra tail, sometimes it's a skull, if it's a small enough animal. I wonder. Vulture nest, or let's go to Djuma Dam. Continue our dam visiting drive. Waterholes, let's call them waterholes. Go past Djuma Waterhole. Although there's a camera there, and I'm sure some of you are on that camera, maybe some aren't, but I'd like to see as well what's going on at the dam, at the waterhole, at the water. Difference between a dam and a waterhole, not really much. Waterholes can be natural or man-made. They just set generally much smaller bodies of water than a dam. Smaller than a waterhole, I guess you could say, would be a pan. a naturally made pan, which is a result of large animals wallowing in mud year after year, and every time they wallow in the mud, every time it rains, they go away, taking away with them a lot of mud. So it slowly but surely and gradually gets a lot bigger and becomes a pan. And I suppose the other thing about a pan is that it has a very distinct ecosystem surrounding it because of the creatures that live in the mud during the dry season. Some wonderful, incredible stories of creatures that breed parthenogenetically. They have virgin birth, they have no males in their society, where females are able to give birth or lay eggs for that matter without being fertilized, of fish that live an entire life cycle within the lifetime of a pan during the wet season. And when the dry season comes, they've not only hatched and grown but mated and died and left their eggs behind, of insect larvae that have science fiction type appendages with which they catch their prey. Oh, here's a flower. This is a crassula or a kalanchoe. Look at this. Little flower head from, I think it's a crassula. It's not as leafy as a crassula, so it could be a kalanchoe. I'll have to look it up. It doesn't have a very fleshy leaf. Could be Crassula albica or something albica because of the white flower. Normally they're yellow. It's like a little cauliflower head. Not quite. Thanks, Alex. Hippo tracks here that could be from Buffelshoek Dam coming this way. Hello Kathy! Kathy in Tennessee. Greetings to you, Kathy. Your morning, our afternoon. Kathy wanting to know, driving around, Kathy wants to know whether I use scent as a means to help find things. Sense of smell. Maybe not so much to find things, Kathy, but as a certain, well, there are times when yes, very much so. I mean, I am very sensitive to the smell of a carcass, to the smell of the decaying aftermath of a kill, and I have often been able to follow my nose, follow the scent to find the carcass. Even if it's a dead lizard in the grass, I've actually been able to locate it. It's a very harsh smell. It's not a very pleasant thing to boast about, I suppose. I'm conscious of smells all the time. The one thing that is very distinct early in the morning is the smell of a leopard having marked its territory. Thing to boast about, I suppose. I'm conscious of smells all the time. The one thing that is very distinct early in the morning is the smell of a leopard having marked its territory. There are dung smells, but it's not really an easy indicator of where the animal might be. Certainly an idea of where it has been, easy way to actually follow up and then find the animal. Waterbuck have a very distinct smell. Often it's also early morning when the air is very still and it's very fresh. Very easy to pick up the scent of waterbuck, so you might not see them, but you'll be able to smell them. But no, it's not really a kind of, since we as humans, we just have to look at the size of our nose compared to the size of the nose of many animals who have a much more well-developed olfactory system, that we do not possess the greatest ability of, or the ability to smell that other animals do have. Maybe because smell is not really that important to us in terms of finding food, because there's a lily. Look at that lily down there. There's a bunch of them, but there's one in particular. It's one of the grass lilies, and clearly hasn't had much sunshine, and it's quite far down, and it's pretty unfortunate that it's in such a distance. But I've been hoping to find you a lily like this. I think it's one of the crinums even. Beautiful big tubular flowers. Saved by the bell. Lily distracts me from the smell question. But no, I suppose Kiwi, I don't really find animals by smell. They certainly help me to identify where the animals have been here or there. But then there's also the very pungent smell of an elephant in must. And sometimes I can smell the musk elephant, and then sometimes I'm in located because I follow the scent, but because I can smell him, and that leads me to looking for him. I was going to say that there were hippo tracks, could be here, they're also left this part of. Convenient for the buffalo to be sitting right in front of the camera. All in. Funny how there's nearly 24 of them sitting in the little dams. Dams, nothing. Lonesome old bull. Although I'm sure he's not too concerned about his solitary. What's the word? Existence. No, solitary situation. Yeah, existence. Thanks. Solitude, that's what I was thinking of, is solitude. Right, let's go south. Looks like another front might move up tonight while we're asleep, or after sunset. There's a bit of cloud way down in the south. Looks like it could be a cloud bank coming in. The more cloud, the more rain, the more flowers, the more life. Crested Franklin and a hoopoe in the road. Hoopoe actually had its crest up but flew away. Cyclists are starting to come out onto the roads. So as evening draws in, I'm sure we're going to maybe get a little bit more going, maybe more things to see. I have seen the giraffe family. We've been watching a giraffe family over time, over the last few weeks, that have been here on Djuma pretty much exclusively. And I think, was it yesterday, I think, when we were heading back to Manyeleti, we bumped into them. They were making their way into Manyeleti. They were already in Manyeleti and they were heading north into Manyeleti. So I think that giraffe family might be the last, well, I might not be able to get to see them again, which is a pity, because they were such a wonderful family to watch. It was so unusual to have that many sightings of a big group of giraffe. Well, it wasn't a big group, but a big bull, 2 females and a young bull, and then of course the little one, and being able to follow them the way we have over the last little while. Of course, they're not the only giraffe on the planet, but it was just a lovely dynamic to have had male and female and youngsters. Jacob lying down, as I suppose most things are on a day like today. It doesn't get up. You stop and look at it,
it's slow. It's
gone already. Oh, see it running through the back there. Jake, one of our dwarf antelope, it's not the smallest. We have the Steenbok, which is smaller than Diker. What I suppose it's a directly translated it means diver, and they directly translated it means diver, and they do have a habit when they're running away from a predator, when they're running away from things, they have a way of diving into sort of a very deep thicket. And it's also the way they run. They sort of, yeah, they're diving in nature. Not because they dive into water. Diving in to pick a bush, get away, to hide away. Hello, old man. Whiling away the hours in a mud wallow. Oh, here's a couple of his mates. Guess they can't all fit with wallows, so they're sitting up a little bit. Hello, boys. If I can sneak past you, I really don't want you to get up on my account, but if you don't mind just sort of sitting there. Hello, boys. This guy looks like he's got a pretty bad left eye. Or maybe just the way he's turning his face. No, I think his eye's fine. Yeah, his eye's fine. This is the way he was looking. About the closest we can get to buffalo without disturbing them. Well, we're very close, and I think it's only because it's so hot and they're so listless that staying in the water that he's not really too concerned with our presence. With the density of the horn, this is his boss, this is what we call the boss, that very dense area of horn above his head, between his horns, that is used for fighting and head-butting. This other boy, he's blowing bubbles with his nose. The ubiquitous oxpecker. If his head dips any lower, he's going to start inhaling water. That's what he's doing. He's blowing bubbles. He's making his own jacuzzi. Buffalo spa bath. The chirping we can hear, the oxpeckers that are around the buff. Cleaning ticks and other things from their fur, from their skin. Oxpecker with a lot to say today. They will catch flies, and there are always swarms of flies that follow these large mammals, and it's not only the ticks and other things, parasites on the skin of the buffalo, but it's also the flies that they will catch, which is what is, there we go, just caught one as I mentioned it. There are a bunch of really strange looking flies known as bat flies that are biting flies. Very flat looking flies. They don't look anything like your domestic fly, and they crawl around on the skin. Some of them, actually, there are some flies that don't even have wings. There are some wingless flies that look like some grotesque science fiction creature that crawl over. In fact, some people would think that they were ticks, but if you looked at the legs, you'd see that they're actually flies. And of course, we now getting a few of those flies coming buzzing around us. An endless food supply around these large mammals for the oxpeckers, and coupled with that is of course a lot of nesting material. They often do pull out fur or hair and use it as nesting material. But they nest in holes in trees. Oxpecker is telling these buffalo a very long story that I can't understand. I wish I could translate it for you. I don't know, something about lion last week or something. I just caught a few words here and there. Got it. One less fly in the world. Guess I can't be too sad about that. But flies have a reason to be here too, so that they can feed things like oxpeckers. Oh yes, you smell wonderful, boys. You and your mud and the terrapins. There are a bunch of terrapins in the water there too. I can see a little bit of movement between them, and often you'll find the terrapins will also be picking at ticks and things on the buffalo, sometimes on the hippo too. You'll see the terrapins swimming around them, maybe later on in the season. Not too many terrapins in this little wallow right now. Let's move along. Bye boys. Bye bye oxpecker. Oxpecker actually his store has flown off. That WildEarth there maybe every busy Christmas vacation. Look for cleanup or the like. Last minute shopping. You don't have to send presents in. Nice to get some though. Nice. Viewer that has only joined us recently, it's nice to get to know you, where you're watching from, and send us a little message. Which part of the planet? If you want to tweet it, it's hashtag Safari Live or WildEarth. Email is questions@wildearth.tv. Anything else? .tv. Okay. Very well. Hey, Wexpo. Find the sunset spot. We're pretty low. We need to get up high. Might be a bit far for us from here. We can try, or at least maybe Zoe's Road Junction. Go on to Gurry Main and head west. See if we can pick up some back of the dogs. There were some dogs seen just south today. I was told that they hadn't come north. They did evidently Gurry Main and then the south again.
Hello everyone. Being out in the bush and being out there live has its technical challenges. We're experiencing some of that now and are working on it as fast as possible to get it sorted and get you back in the vehicle with us.
Back, just a slight signal drop there in where we were as a result of being last of it for today. Sometimes you just have to get to some areas, and even if we know that there might be a moment or two that we'll lose you, there are areas that we need to check. Now that it's sort of around about sunset, it's time for some things to start coming out of the woodwork where they've been hiding all day because of the heat. Heat is completely gone now. Now it's a perfect temperature. It's I would call it room temperature now. And time for some things to move around. We can head back towards an area where, when we started up, where there were a couple of tracks from a day or two ago, and maybe things will start moving around, and then maybe we can get to the big open area near the main camp of Djuma called Boyatella. Maybe that's where there might be some zebra and wildebeest and impala that will be coming out of the thicket or denser woodland to spend the night on the open plains. I think we're heading into new moon right now. I would imagine it's getting pretty close to new moon. Where we were, it's 5:19. Yeah, I guess we're after new moon. A little bit of cloud in the west to see if there is a new sickle moon coming out. Maybe I could get an answer from somebody out there. Do a check of moon phases for me, kind of thing. It would be around about now. If we haven't missed it. In which case the first sliver of the crescent moon should be visible somewhere behind this cloud in the west. And then we can start to watch it build up as it builds up over the next 2 weeks to full moon. Right, here I'm seeing wild dog tracks where they came out onto, this must be where they came out onto this road earlier today. On the right of us is where we can go, and on the left of us is where we can't go. And these dogs were right here on the edge of the road. Looks like they were running towards the west, then they crossed back over that way. Saw one or two here. Be interesting to see if we find any, because they were heading west, so from here going west, it'd be nice to see if they maybe came back across up towards Zoe's road. Unlike the cats, the wild dog don't tend not to move in the same direction for lengthy periods of time. They're generally all over the place. They can run one direction for 10 or 15 minutes and then suddenly turn around and do a 180 and go in the other direction, in the opposite direction, or 90 degrees. They're just all over the place. Depends on where the scent is picked up for prey, where the alphas want to go hunt. But they too would have been sleeping most of the afternoon under the shade, and they too would probably be getting a little bit active now. Yep, here we go. There was a dog sleeping here in the road not too long ago. Might have gone in. If I can just move to the side, you can actually see, yeah, they did. There are tracks that are heading in. I need to get around from Zoe's road. More tracks. Yeah, they were all over here. in on Zoe's Road and go and have a look at Philemon's Dip and maybe up Rebecca's Road. As I say, it's not easy to tell with dogs. You know, if I find lion tracks, sometimes you can actually jump ahead and get an idea or imagine where they might be heading, and because they're heading in a particular direction, you might, not always, but sometimes you might be lucky to actually find them in the direction. But wild dog, you can never tell. These are the African hunting dogs. They're an endangered species. There are not very many left. In fact, I think there are less than 400 left in southern Africa. That's probably a conservative estimate. But they could also, if they're on the run, they could be anywhere. We can see the mountains in the distance. No, not really. So now I've got to do some guesswork. If they have headed north, I think if we go up Zoe's Road and come back down Rebecca's Road, we might be able to intercept them if it wasn't too long ago. It doesn't look like it was very long ago, and I'm pretty sure that it was on top of a lot of the game drive vehicles' tracks, because I don't think any of them picked up that they came back north after they were south. But also the other thing I do have to show you from this part of the world, and we're not going to get to see it again because of the cloud, is this beautiful sky. If we can maybe stop just here going up onto Philemon's cut line. Maybe I'll do Philemon's cut line and then see if they cross this road. I'm going to stop and switch off. Maybe I can hear alarm calls, maybe I can hear the sound of excited dogs. But only the sound of birds and the closing sounds of the day. Really beautiful sky tonight. Just make out the escarpment through that gap in the center there now. The distant mountains called the Drakensberg Mountains. Dragon Mountains. Welcome to Africa, everybody. A moment of the day that is like no other. Every day you have a gift of a sunrise and a sunset that is so spectacular that it can never be repeated. Maybe just close the iris a bit, pick up a little bit more texture. very special. I'm glad to share it with you all. And on that note, I think let's go see if we can see whether these canids, these painted wolves, these clowns of the African savannah. Well, they're not clowns. They're very serious predators. Let's see if they've come through this way. This road now runs parallel to the road that I found the tracks on just to the south of us. And by traveling this road, if they did come north, they would have crossed somewhere on this road. Now that I've got the sun or the light behind me, it's harder to see the tracks, because the best way to see tracks is looking into the bright light of a sunrise or a sunset. I'm not sure if they're here, I'll find them. The beauty of having a pack of dogs is that there's more than one individual and they don't all stay in a line, they don't all run together. So if I maybe miss one set of tracks, I might be able to pick up another. Gotta go. There we go. Running down the road this way. So I want to just step this up a little bit. There are some dogs that have been running down this way. Oh, and there they've left the road. I don't know whether it was that side or that side. Maybe we have to make a little turn. So they came this far in that they actually touched on this road. They'd been running west on Gowrie Main, which is just 200 meters to our south. Here we go again. And now they're running east again. As I say, these let's go to Treehouse Dam. These dogs don't have direction. They run around, they find something to hunt, and then they'll hunt it. They have a general direction that they'll move from one area to another, but once they're in an area and they've been resting up all day, and this looks like they've been resting, this looks like they are up and at it after being in the shade all day, and they're now starting to get active for the early evening and maybe for a hunt. I'm also banking the fact that maybe, just maybe, we have a thirsty pack of dogs. Oxpeckers are flying home from the buffalo down here at the dam. Or they could be flying home early because the buffalo are having a standoff. Find this flower's name. dozen places they could be right now. They could be heading out onto the open plain of the area we know as Quarantine, the area that our young leopard Quarantine male was named after. They could be heading anywhere. They could be heading up towards that open area near the hyena den on Zoe's Road. They could also be heading back south. Oh, impala running across the damn wall at speed. Of the buffalo are not interested at all. Although some of them are looking to see why the impala might have been running. There's no reason why the impala would be. Hello boys. Yeah, something was there. Here come the dogs. Here they come. They're coming straight towards us now. I love it when the plan comes together. They've been after these impala. There's one dog just, whoa, we got him on camera. Yeah, they're on the move. They won't do anything to the buffalo. The buffalo is way too big for dogs. But these dogs are all over the place. I'm glad that part of it came together, that timing is everything. Timing and tracking everything. So we've only got one dog that came past us now, and hopefully we'll find him again, or her. Didn't get to see very well because of, there he is at the water, running across the dam, back to the dam. It's coming to the water here now. Maybe they're gonna drink. Just had a quick lap of water. A little bit nervous. Let's see if it communicates with any of the other dogs. This is one of our endangered species animals. Endangered, folks. This is this is a dog that's been on the run probably for the last half an hour. Very thirsty, very hot. He one of the subordinate males. It's not the alpha male. It's not the breeding male. We'll see if we can follow him. It might take us to the rest of the pack. I'm just going to have to call this in and hope that it doesn't cut the signal out. Trias Dam. I was transmitting over others. Going back up towards Filament's Kata. I just had one Tosheng Mala Trias Dam is running back towards Filament's cut line. I found them Gonzo on Filament's cut line heading back east, so maybe if you're coming up from Nyala, go to Chelapan, come up towards Pampa. No, I'm going around onto Filament's cut line because he cut through the Slatine. I want to go and see if I can catch him when he comes out on Filament's cut line. I could have gone through the bush following him, but I think since I've got a road network to use, I'd rather not go crashing through. But there's now other dogs that are at Djuma waterhole, or any of the zoomies we might be watching right now. Evidently the rest of the pack. This is how well spread out they are at the moment. We've got one dog here, and some other. I've got to turn that radio down. 300-400 meters away is the rest of the pack up at Djuma waterhole at Gari Dam. So we're going to make our way there now. This other one that we were with, this young male, probably coming through somewhere here right now. What amazes me is that they don't vocalize like lion. They don't have such a loud call, but they do have a vocabulary. They do have a lot of vocalizing that they do. But how they can be spread out over such a vast distance, and yet they'll all collect back together again. What this one was doing, chasing those impala on its own for, is anybody's guess. Only the dog knows. But it sounds like maybe the rest of the pack are at Djuma Dam, Djuma waterhole, and maybe the Zoomy can get them on the camera. So, anything behind that? Nothing yet. I just hear. I think it must have been one of the guys at the lodge that radioed through to Tex, and that there are others at the waterhole. And if this one is anything to go by, they've been running around, they've been chasing things, and they now need a little bit of a break and a little bit of water and regroup. Oh, I love it, I love it, I love it. Scent, I suppose, whichever one you want to choose. I'm sure that scent plays a very big role in dogs being able to locate each other. They can follow the scent just of the smell of where a dog has placed his feet. So it's not always an auditory signal or an auditory communication that allows them to get back together again, but if they are split up, the way dogs track is they crisscross until they pick up the scent that they need, and they'll follow that scent. We're so far from the Djuma waterhole that at the rate that these dogs are moving right now, that's why it was so lucky to catch them. It's one thing when you find wild dog and they're either at a waterhole and they're drinking and they're relaxing, because then they're going to lie around and there's going to be a little bit of interaction and a little bit of playing. But it's another thing when they are on the move. If you're not with them and you're not with the whole pack, a quick glimpse is all you're going to get, because they move so fast. And I was thinking that if they were going to come onto Western Gari, onto Djuma, this is an area that they're likely to get to, because there are baby wildebeest here, there are impala here, there are a number of prey species that they're likely to go for that will be coming out onto this open area at night. And they come out into the open because they need the safety of the open area to be able to react to predators before the predator is close enough to actually go into hunt mode. When it comes to prey and predators, if you can see your predator, you're not likely to be caught by that predator, except for wild dogs. And what makes them such phenomenal predators is the fact that they have, as dogs normally do, they have incredible stamina. And they might not have the strength of the lion, they might not have the speed of a cheetah, they might not have the stealth of a leopard, or even the strength of a leopard for that matter. But what they do have that none of the cats have is incredible stamina. They can run their prey down, and there are not many things that can run longer and harder than a pack of dogs. Because the dogs, when they are hunting something and they are chasing it down, almost run in relays. So there are two white birds down here at the water that are very interesting. Lovely little patch of pink sky, that's lovely. It's neat. Looks like there are two spoonbills down in here. Oh, that's a vehicle, that's not the dogs. there goes Texan. Yellow-billed stork. Okay. So, see, I better put this radio on. No idea where they went. No, if any Zoomy can let us know if you did pick them up. A really incredible thing that we've got here, though, apart from the dogs, and we're not going to be able to race around looking for them if we don't really know where they are. We can go back towards where we were, but I have to show you this to you. Oh. Let us know if you did up. A really incredible thing that we've got here, apart from the dogs, and we'd be able to race looking for them. The trio of birds that we can see right now, which is probably on the camera, but I have to tell you about them. And then sometimes in East Africa you get a third, although there are 3 birds here, there are only 2 species. And sometimes in East Africa you actually get 3 species that are often together. And here we have the yellow-billed stork and 2 African spoonbills. Now they might be eating the same thing and they might be in competition with each other, but they have different methods of catching frogs and fish, although it looks like the stork's getting a little bit impatient with the spoonbills. You see, the spoonbills want to be moving around where the stork is, because the stork, the way that the stork moves, chases food into the path of the beak of the spoonbill. The spoonbill's hunting method, like the one on the right, is by sweeping its head from side to side. The bill is shaped with a spoon, sort of that spoon shape at the end of the bill, hydrodynamically designed to actually lift things out of the silt as it sweeps it past into the path of the bill on the next sweep. And then sometimes you get the pelican that moves with them, and the pelican is the one that sits in or moves in front, and each one stirring up food for the next.
There are herons in the left tree.
Yes, so getting back to David's question from the UK earlier, of course we got the geese coming into the shot now as well, the geese and their goslings. Goslings are getting quite big already. But David was asking the difference between a stork and a heron. So there's the stork, the yellow-billed stork on the right, and here comes a heron flying past the screen now. Whoa! And there's a heron. A much sharper, smaller bill, smaller head, much longer neck, but that curve of the neck of the heron is quite distinct and quite unique. Well, not when it's stretching its neck out like that, but certainly when it's at rest. There's an S shape to a heron's head. And just to do a head count to the goslings. Looks like 7. Looks like all of them are still around. Oh, hang on a sec. Getting text. One was young Madoda. Thanks. Around treehouse again. Jimmy is back at Djuma. Big buffalo that's somehow been disturbed there too. standing on the dam wall. So zoomies, keep an eye out this evening. Anybody who was, when we finish the drive, do remember that even though the drive is going to be over, there's tune into Djuma chance that those dogs might come back past here later on. We're just going to have a look up this road again. Said that there was one still running in. I think it must still be the same one, trying to locate the rest of the pack. Word is from the lodge that sent the message earlier that there were maybe one or two. There wasn't a lot of them at the dam. There was only one or two that was here. But it makes sense that they might be coming out onto the open area. And of course the sky is just getting better and better, and it's just such a most beautiful evening. Absolutely beautiful. So let's take a little ride. Wildebeest don't seem to... One wildebeest up there doesn't seem too perturbed. Some impala that are looking down this way, actually. I better just stop and up towards our little canvas shelter, or rather tarpaulin shelter. Impala are watching us, so there's obviously been some alarm calling, because they are alert. And now the impala looking over that way. Not easy to keep up with wild dog when they're on the run and they're on the hunt, unless you're in the Serengeti or something, or if they were here on this open area. But running through the bush, pardon?
Yeah, right in front of us.
Right in front of us. Well done. On to quarantine. The impala straight ahead of them. This is a big male. I can see he's got a very thick neck. He might even be alpha male, that one that's running, that we can see now. So I can see the wildebeest in the distance. He's probably seen them already. I can't hear with the engine running, but he's probably alarming. Sorry. God, thanks. Okay, I'm going to move forward. They're looking, looks like they're looking around for other dogs now. Just judging by the size of this male, I'm guessing that he's the alpha male. His genitals are also very big, which leads me to believe that maybe he's the breeding male. Within a pack of dogs, you're only going to get one pair, the alpha pair, that are the breeders. Well, as it implies, the alpha male and alpha female are the leaders of the pack. Generally, I suppose it is more the female that looks like a female, the other one there at the back too, but we'll stick with this boy for now. Looking back in the direction of where they came, hoping that, I guess that maybe the rest of the pack is going to be coming this way. Would be lovely to see them. Now, also a very important thing in wild dog identification is this left profile that we've got now. I won't be able to get a photograph, but at least we'll be able to get a screenshot. The wild dog study, the wild dog research that is being done now to try and better understand their movements and the dangers that they face in this modern world with human-wildlife conflict. To have a database of individual wild dogs, it's important to have one feature that you always look at, and for the wild dog researcher there's mostly the left profile like this, because each dog has a different profile, each dog has a different pattern, they are all different individuals. And look at his ears too. I mean, not only his coat pattern, but you can see this boy has been in a few fights. He's a wild dog in his prime. He's a magnificent animal. Oh, fantastic. We're not going to be knocking off at the top of the hour as we normally do. We're going to have to stay with them until it gets too dark. We don't really use lights with them, but as long as we've got a little bit of light with the camera, we're going to stay with them. They've stopped. They think it's got something to do with the impala that might be up ahead. There is one wildebeest. There's a big wildebeest bull up there, and there were some impala. And I would imagine that maybe they're waiting for the rest of the pack to catch up with them before they maybe continue on with the hunt. So I'm just going to go around towards the back of Texan. Sherry, hello Sherry. Sherry wanting to know how fast they can run. Sherry, I've never really measured it, but it's fast. The thing is, because of their stamina, it's not necessarily a speed that they run at, more as they pick up a gait that is energy conserving, like a trot, and it's only really once they really get moving on the hunt that they might pick up speed. But I don't know speed. It's hard to sort of say, especially because there are always obstacles in the bush. Maybe, gosh, I don't know, 25, 30 miles an hour. I don't know. It's not a quantifiable, it's not something that one can measure. But they are pretty quick when they do really get going. Looks like they're trying to locate the rest of the pack. Be interesting if they vocalize, but I don't think they will vocalize, because if they really are on the hunt, it's not going to do them good to be vocalizing. Maybe even just a subtle noise here and there that's not going to... perfect. Time to take a rest. Lie in the sand of the road. Give us a wonderful view for the closing of a day. There's another one that's just come in right here next to us. I need to go forward. There's a greeting. Oh, goodness. Well, another one that's just come. I think this is the male that we saw earlier on his own. So, pack now numbering 3. I'm gonna go because yeah, I'll pull out now. Andrew, you can come in. Okay, it is getting a little bit dark, folks, and it's getting time to sort of leave them too. They're heading down in towards the drainage line. But there is another vehicle that's coming in, and it is important that only 2 vehicles stay with the wild dog at a time. We don't want to crowd them, especially because they're running all over the place. You can't have too many vehicles with them. But it is courtesy to have had the visual and the experience that we've had. Let the last few minutes to view the wild dog, even if it's only for a few seconds at the end of the day. So that is just a crowning glory. It was a wonderful present after a very stressful few days of trying to get the vehicle up and running, and finally getting out on safari again, and also just at the end of the day. So that is just a crowning glory. It was a wonderful present after a very stressful few days of trying to get the vehicle up and running, and finally getting out on safari again. Also just the patience. If you stayed with us all afternoon, and this is what nature does, if it rewards us with the patience of stopping and looking at monitor lizards and looking at flowers, and eventually when things cool down, suddenly something pops out of the woodwork. And that's one of the wonderful things about nature and about wildlife, African wildlife, about being in the bush. It's the very thing that drives us, and it's why we do what we do, because none of this can become monotonous. None of this can ever be repeated. We can never see the same thing twice, and we can never get bored with what it is that we're seeing. So on that note, since I think it's about time to sort of say goodbye, and with there's the crescent moon. It is the crescent moon. I'm going to say goodbye with the crescent moon in the camera. Wait, let me go a little bit forward, because we've got no, not backwards, Mark, forward, first gear, not reversed. There, that beautiful cloud sunset that we had earlier. There you go. And looks like big eyelashes in the sky. And so the first of the new moon, and the first of a new month, and we're going to be watching the moon grow a little bit bigger every day. For all of those lunatics out there that love watching the moon with me, and a big hello to Patty Mulligan. Don't know if you're watching, Patty, but a new moon phase to follow us through the next month. Some dogs to end the day, and I'm a very happy person. I hope you're all very happy too, and we'll see you first thing in the morning tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock Central African time, our time. And Scott will be out on safari, I think probably with Jason on camera, and I'll see you on Christmas morning, if not before. Goodbye everyone, thank you for joining us here at Wild Earth at Djuma Game Reserve and Nat Geo Wild. Love you lots.